Good evening and welcome to Rory Talks Football. It is your daily Arsenal updates, news, and just basically my opinion on everything Arsenal. If you're new to the channel, please do drop a subscription. It would be greatly appreciated as we try and grow this channel and this community. If you're watching on TikTok, again, the link is in my bio on TikTok. Please do go and drop us a subscription. Lots to talk about today. Lots to talk about. You see the title, the thumbnail, Vitor Roque. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Vitor Roque. Very young Brazilian talent, currently plays in Brazil, who, well, is meant to be going to Barcelona, supposedly, but that might not happen now, and that could open up an opportunity for Arsenal. The team trained today, the Arsenal squad, the first training we've had since the international break, or the first proper full squad training session that we've had. We were waiting for it to give us an understanding of who's fit, who's going to be available for the game against Leeds on Saturday. And overall, there was good news and bad news, but I'd say predominantly good news. Other than that, Haaland, is he injured or is Pep playing mind games? Are mind games going to work against Mikel Arteta? And then we've also got some news on Saka and the Player of the Month award. And that is pretty much it. So we'll get straight into the Vitor Roque transfer. Now, I didn't know much about him, to be honest. I had to do a bit of research. He currently plays for, and I want to pronounce this correctly, Atletico Paranaense, which is a Brazilian team. So he's only just turned 18. He turned 18 last month. But on this international break, he did make his debut for Brazil, which is big for an 18-year-old, someone that's just turned 18, to make your Brazilian debut. Clearly, he's a very exciting talent. From what I've looked at him this afternoon, seen a couple of clips. It's hard to tell from clips in the Brazilian league how good someone may or may not be. But he's about 5'7". He's about 5'7", quite stocky. Left-footed, and he plays predominantly as a centre forward, but can play off the right wing. So he gives, other than being left-footed rather than right-footed, strong vibes of Gabriel Jesus. And it's interesting that Arsenal are potentially interested in that, because we've all looked at it, or a lot of us have looked at it and thought, well, if we are going to bring in another striker, you'd want them to be a different profile to what we've already got. And Vitor Roque isn't that. He's not a different profile to what we've already got. Now, in terms of the move itself, Barcelona are leading the way. Fabrizio Romano mentioned it yesterday that Barcelona are very hot on him and they want him. The player himself has made it clear, apparently, that he wants to go to Barcelona. That's his dream move. But the big thing that it comes down to is that, obviously, Vitor Roque's club will be looking at this as a big opportunity financially. And are Barcelona going to have that money? What is the financial situation at Barcelona at the moment? So that is where potentially Arsenal, and there are other clubs sniffing around, could come in. Now, the rumour is that Vitor Roque's father, who I think is also his agent at the moment, is flying to London within the next week to talk it over with potentially Arsenal, potentially other London clubs. I mean, it's interesting. It's hard to get carried away, but then you also look at the success that we've had from Brazil, and it's hard to say no, basically. Of course, that is another pool that we have. If we are the second best option for the player, we do have the Brazilian pull of the Brazilian players that we've got: Jesus, Martinelli, Marquinhos, Gabriel. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting. How much he'll be worth is interesting. 30, 40 million. Would you pay it for a player that's only just turned 18? I mean, he had 29. Obviously, the seasons work differently in Brazil, so I think they finished last season. He played 29 times, most of them off the bench, scored 5 goals. So not an amazing return, but for a 17-year-old, not bad at all. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I do think Barcelona will struggle. I can't. They're not meant to be able to spend any money. So unless they're going to sell to buy, I don't really see how they're going to afford it. Interestingly, Arsenal apparently are interested in Eric Garcia, who is at Barcelona, and it would make a very fun game of cat and mouse in the summer transfer window if us buying Garcia gave Barcelona the money that meant that they could buy Roque if we also want Roque. Because at that point, you'd say, well, we'd try and sign Roque first because you don't want to pay for him. But I mean, that'll just be one of those fun games, and we'll see how it goes. Someone in the chat just said that his dream club is Barca, but you don't always get to move to your dream club. Ask Mikhailo Mudryk. Doesn't always happen like that. So there we go. That's all there is on him. I'll be keeping tabs on him. Again, like I said, it's difficult to tell just how good a player is from YouTube highlight reels from the Brazilian league. You never know. But that's that. Welcome everyone that's in the YouTube chat. Good to see you. Good to see you. If you're on TikTok, I am live on YouTube and we'll be responding to that chat. So get in there through the link in my bio. Moving on though, Arsenal trained today. Arsenal trained again for the first time since. I'll sort that, Rams. I will sort that, Rams. Arsenal trained, the first proper squad training session. So over the international break, we'd have obviously had training sessions for some of the players that weren't going on international duty. But for the players that came back from international duty, today was the first time that we got to see them. And of course, there were a lot of questions on some players' fitness. Kieran Tierney, Thomas Partey, William Saliba, Eddie Nketiah. And the news is 50-50. Partey trained and looked fine. As we predicted, as we talked about yesterday, it was just smart, making sure that he didn't play that second game against Angola. Kieran Tierney trained, which is great. He's fine. Obviously, I don't expect him to start against Leeds, but it's good depth. Saliba didn't train, and neither did Eddie Nketiah. Now, when the news came out, when we saw the players training this morning, that was obviously not great because we've had no updates, especially on Saliba. Nketiah is not so much of a problem because of the depth we've got in that position, but Saliba is a problem. And so that was bad news, and we were kind of waiting for updates. There is an update from The Athletic, which is that despite missing training today, both Nketiah and Saliba are going to be assessed tomorrow ahead of the game. Now, if they're going to be assessed, that suggests that they are at least somewhat close to a return. They may not make it in time for the Leeds game. The Leeds game isn't too important in terms of we should win that comfortably without Saliba anyway. But if he's at least at the point where he's in a position to be assessed, hopefully that suggests that he's not too far away from a return. It is important that we get him back for Liverpool. It's important that we get him back for Man City. So overall, I'd say it was a relatively positive day on that front. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, personally, if Saliba, especially if Saliba is only in a position where he can be assessed tomorrow for a back injury, I probably wouldn't risk him against Leeds anyway. It's not the sort of thing you want that to flare up again and then him to miss some more important games. I think Rob Holding is more than capable of starting against Leeds. Apparently, I just need to kick someone from the. I need to kick someone from the YouTube chat. Someone on the YouTube chat's telling me to do some. Telling me to do some things. How do I get rid of him? I don't know how to do this. He's gone. He's gone. He was telling me to end my life. Very mean. Very mean. It's the sort of thing I get on Twitter quite a lot. Not so much on YouTube. Anyway, look, we've all dealt with it. He's gone, and there we go. Talking of injury, Haaland. Is he injured? Is he not injured? Whenever a City player, other than where it's like Foden, where he's out with a bloody appendicitis and had his appendix removed, and there's not really much you can do to hide that fact, you always think Pep might be playing games. Is he playing games with Haaland? I don't think he is necessarily, because Haaland went to Norway with the intention of playing and then got sent home from their doctor. I do think there's something. Now, how long that is going to be, you don't know. But he didn't train for Man City today. Obviously, they play City. City play Liverpool in the lunchtime kickoff on Saturday. And look, if they're without Haaland, it can only be beneficial for Arsenal, and it can only be beneficial for Liverpool, who have got some players coming back. Luis Diaz trained today. And so hopefully, I mean, look, you never want to wish injury on a player, right? But I wouldn't say no to Haaland missing a few games. Of course, he will absolutely guarantee be back by the time that Arsenal play Man City. But we don't know how long it's going to be. We don't know how long it's going to be. The fact that he was, I don't know, the fact that he trained when he was in Norway and then got sent home suggests to me it's not too bad. But we will see. Foden, however, is out for a long time. Foden, well, it's interesting, right? So Foden has had his appendix out. And that in itself, the recovery is a couple of weeks. The issue is he's stitched up. It's open surgery, so he's been stitched up. Now, the NHS says you shouldn't do strenuous activity for 6 weeks after that because the stitches can come undone. If City need him to play, I'd imagine that they can get around that 6 weeks quite easily. Maybe even just stitch him up again at the end of every game. But I do think he'll be out for a bit. So potentially, look, City are going into the Liverpool game on Saturday. I don't want this to become a City Liverpool chat, but yeah, if City are going into that game without Haaland and without Foden, effectively you have to play Grealish, Alvarez, and Mahrez. And look, I think Liverpool could beat them. No, I think Liverpool could get a point. Let's not get carried away. But I do think Liverpool can do something, and it's a big psychological boost for the Liverpool players as well, knowing that Haaland's not going to be there. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to watching it. I'm hoping I'm going to get to the Emirates early and then watch the game in the bar at the Emirates. It could be absolute. We could have absolute lins in the Emirates before Arsenal have even kicked off, which would be delightful. And of course, the psychological edge for Arsenal, if we start, because we could start. I mean, if Liverpool got a win, which would be crazy, but if they did, if Arsenal start the game against Leeds 8 points clear, having played the same number of games at that point, with a chance to go 11 points clear. That would be unbelievable, wouldn't it? Absolutely unbelievable. Do you think we'll sign this is Joe Madiford. Do you think we'll sign a left back or right back in the summer? Maybe move Tommy to left back. I think we'll buy both. Well, do you know what Tierney's got? Tierney's got 10 games to prove to Arteta that he is good enough at the inverted role to stay at Arsenal. And I think he could do it. I genuinely think he could do it. He looked really a lot better in that position against Crystal Palace. So Tierney could do it. We're definitely buying a right back. We are buying a right back. Hopefully Ivan Fresneda. But the left back's interesting because I do think Tomiyasu's actually looked better at left back this season than at right back, which is interesting considering he's right-footed. But there we go. Other news today: Saka has been named. Saka has been named Player of the Month. Which is great. A bit of not a surprise. I mean, he was always going to win it. Some people are complaining that it wasn't Ruben Dias. But yeah, Saka was always going to win it. It'll be announced tomorrow. And alongside, you would imagine Mikel Arteta being announced as Premier League Manager of the Month as well. So another clean sweep for the Arsenal. I think that's what? Is that our third Player of the Month this season? And our third Manager of the Month or fourth Manager of the Month? Look, that's what happens when you're 8 points clear, I guess, isn't it? But look, that's very good for Saka, the face of the Premier League. Someone said this earlier. Who's the face of the Premier League? The face of the Premier League is Bukayo Saka. At the moment, the face of the Premier League is Bukayo Saka. I don't think it's Erling Haaland. I just don't. He's too much of a robot. So yeah, Roque will probably go to Barca. Well, that's the thing. So we said about Roque, Vitor Roque, that Barca might not have the financial capacity to bring in Vitor Roque. It'll be interesting. It will be interesting. Saka will at least get Young Player of the Year award coming from Rams. Yeah, it's Player of the Year will be interesting, right? Generally speaking, if you win the league, your best player gets Player of the Year. Not always, but generally speaking, if X team wins the league, X team's best player wins Player of the Year. There is, however, a chance Arsenal win the league, but Haaland breaks every goal scoring record in a season and gets it, which I think would be unfair on Saka, but he'll definitely get Young Player of the Year for sure. Do you think Saka is the only English player possible of winning the Ballon d'Or? I made a video about this. It was a couple of months ago, maybe, about the English players that could win a Ballon d'Or. And of course, it's possible that no current England player goes on to win a Ballon d'Or, and that the next English Ballon d'Or winner is not even a professional footballer yet. But of the current crop, it's between Foden and Saka, I think. I think it's between Foden and Saka. Rashford would have to have an unbelievable... And Jude Bellingham. But obviously it's more difficult for midfielders to win than it is for attackers. But I would say, look, on form, Bukayo Saka is clearly the most likely to win a Ballon d'Or, especially if Arsenal could start winning a Champions League, Premier League, that sort of thing. Again, if you're in the TikTok chat, I do flick over and watch the TikTok chat. But if you jump over to the YouTube, link in my bio, drop a subscription, be a hero. That would be fantastic. Also, if you could drop a like on the video if you're watching on YouTube, that would be massively appreciated. But yeah, that covers pretty much all of the news today. Again, the Eric Garcia transfer news, I don't think there's much to it at the moment. It would be a surprising signing for me, although the positive, or not necessarily positive, but the thing that you've got to take away from the Eric Garcia rumours is that if Arsenal are looking for a right centre-back, that would suggest that Rob Holding is potentially going to move on in the summer. I think it's probably the right time. I love Rob Holding. I absolutely love Rob Holding. And I think he's been treated unfairly by fans a lot, especially over the last couple of years. But for the sake of his career, especially if we win the league, he's won his Premier League. I think in terms of getting football, playing a lot of football, he's more than capable of playing and starting for most of the bottom half of the Premier League. I've no doubt about it. He doesn't suit necessarily Arsenal's style anymore. But he is a very good centre-back, and he deserves recognition for everything he's done at Arsenal, and I think he would be good for a move. It'll be interesting to see who we get in to replace him. Eric Garcia could be an option. His hairline speaks for himself, yeah. That is one of the best comebacks in football in history, Rob Holding's hairline. What do you think of Saka getting 300 grand a week? Personally, I think he deserves it. Yeah, well, he does deserve it. He absolutely deserves it, and there's no way we can afford to not pay him it and risk losing him. I mean, I think it's difficult. You could never imagine that Saka would move, but he might if he's offered double or something crazy than what Arsenal are offering. It's not actually 300k flat, so it's somewhere in the 200s, and then add-ons can make it up to 300k. So I think in the same way that Haaland's base is like 400k a week, but with add-ons it basically becomes 500k a week every week. Yeah, I think Saka's bang on worth it. David Gea gets paid 375 grand a week. Exactly. Sancho's on 340 or 350. Hey, Jamie. Would you sign Bowen if West Ham went down? Look, I'm a massive fan of Jarrod Bowen. Jarrod Bowen grew up where I grew up, and I played against him a lot as a kid. I played against Jarrod Bowen 4, sometimes 6 times a season because I play against him at school level and at club level. And so I'm always rooting for him. If Arsenal signed him, it would be amazing. He would continue to basically live my dream that I never fulfilled. But yeah, I mean, he wouldn't be a bad signing, would he? I don't think West Ham are going to go down, though, for what it's worth. I really don't think West Ham will go down. I'd be very, very surprised. Thoughts on DAZN? Yeah, so I just made a video on TikTok about the DAZN, potentially DAZN buying all of the rights to all of the EFL games. So all of the League 2, League 1 Championship games. So like over 1,600 games a season. And I mean, fair play to them. It's an ambitious thing to do because, and this would be from 24-25, so they'd have like 18 months to get the infrastructure in place. But that's huge to try and do that. To at any given time, you'd have like 50 or so games streaming at once. Fair play to them if they get it done. I think it's a good thing. I think some people. I don't think, having been to a lot of non-league and lower league football in my life, the majority of people that go to non-league and lower league football, they're not going to watch fantastic football. They're not going because they just have to watch the football and it's not on TV. You're going for the day. You're going for the people and the drinks, and your day kind of revolves around going to the football. So I don't think by putting it on TV, you would lose many match-going fans at all. What you would do, you would enable people that can't go to the games to watch their team. So, for example, I'm from Hereford. I follow Hereford. I live in London. So I go to Arsenal games. I can't go to Hereford games. But if I could watch Hereford games on TV, I absolutely would. So I don't understand why you wouldn't want to do that. And the whole, I mean, look, I don't want to get into a massive thing about support your local. It's a phrase that infuriates me because support your local, either unless you are born in a place and you stay in that place for your whole life, which most people don't anymore, then you either have to change the team you support halfway through your life, or you have to stop going to the games when you move. So I've always hated the support your local thing. It's outdated, and I think the more games you can watch on TV, the better. Same, I'm from Charlton. I work there, but I would love to watch away games. Yeah, exactly. Away games are the other thing as well. It's all very well and good saying support your local. If if you support your local and you live in, even for example, obviously in the Premier League, in the Football League, you could have to travel the entire length of the country, which is one thing. You can't afford to do that every week. There's a cost of living crisis. Not everyone can afford to go on a 400-mile round trip to support their team away every other week. It's just not possible. So I really do. I just think it's good for football. It's good for the Football League. I guarantee there will be clubs in the Football League that will make more money from TV rights than they do from ticket sales. Factually, that will happen. There will be some bigger non-league. There will be some bigger league clubs that might actually lose out slightly because they make a lot of money from tickets and maybe they won't make as much. But I think generally, for the health of football in England, it's the perfect thing to do. Stan Kroenke, in or out? Do you know what? It's actually a really difficult one because the one thing that you've got right now with the Kroenkes, this is a good thing to talk about. I've not spoken about this in a while. The one thing you've got with the Kroenkes at the moment is that they fully back Arteta, and whilst they might not throw insane amounts of money at everything, they are throwing money at it. That we can't really say that the money's not there, especially if we sign all of the people that we want to sign in the summer. And they're letting Edu and Arteta cook. And I think that's really important. We wouldn't be where we were. So as much as I don't particularly like Stan, I think Josh is all right. I don't particularly like Stan, but I don't mind it too much. It's weird. I was absolutely crunkies out when they tried to take us into the Super League, but now they are like the Glazers. They throw money, then they don't spend. I mean, but they not really because the Crunkies haven't had the time that the Glazers have had. They only took over full ownership in it was a few years ago now. I can't remember the exact year, but since they took over full ownership, we've spent decent money. Before that, they didn't have full ownership, so they didn't want to put the money up. I don't think they move like the Glazers. The Glazers are wretched. Like the Glazers compared to the Crunkies are horrific. Arsenal do a lot and do put money into a lot of things that keep the club at the top level. We've just redone the whole of the artwork around the outside of the Emirates. The Glazers would rather take dividends. They take 18 million in dividends and do nothing to Old Trafford. Who is better, Foden or Saka? I've answered this, so you can stop spamming it now. Saka is better than Phil Foden at the moment. On form at the moment this season, Saka is better than Phil Foden. Favorite current Arsenal player? I don't have a favorite current Arsenal player. I can't. It's like picking between children. You can't pick this current Arsenal team. You cannot pick a favorite. You can't. I challenge anyone to do it because who would it be? Last season, I would say my favorite player was Emil Smith-Rowe. He's barely played this season, but I still absolutely love him. You can't not have Bukayo Saka as your favourite. You can't not have Zinchenko as your favourite. You can't not have Ben White as your favourite. It's impossible. It's impossible. I refuse. I refuse. As a good parent would, I refuse. Okay, overall, who is better between Saka and Foden? I think Foden's better technically, but I think I'd rather have Bukayo Saka. Is Arteta similar to Pep or different? Well, there are similarities between Arteta and Pep for sure, but I do think there are differences. He follows a similar path to Pep. He follows a similar philosophy, but he's made a lot of Arsenal his own. And I think, look, this might be a massive hot take. I think Arteta could go on to have a better managerial career than Pep Guardiola. Shoot me. I think he could do it. Arteta's very different to Pep. I think people don't see it because that's the thing. I think people just draw way too many similarities between them because Arteta was Pep's understudy. But overall, I think there's a lot of differences. And look, Arteta's getting more out of this Arsenal team than Pep's getting out of his City team, and it cost a fraction of the money. So I don't think it is a hot take, but it's not much of a hot take. So there we go. In terms of they similar principles, but Arteta has a different philosophy. Yeah. So that's the interesting thing as well that I wanted to talk about. Going back to Vitor Roque, is this idea that Arteta seemingly wants depth in every position that is effectively the same profile as the player that starts. So in terms of how we've seen that Tierney might go, and actually Arteta might want an understudy to Zinchenko that is like Zinchenko, Vitor Roque is very much similar to what we already have. I mean, it's interesting because he's very similar to Marquinhos, who will be coming back in the summer. But I think he'll be... I don't know what happened with Marquinhos, to be fair. But it is interesting that I think Arteta just fully backs himself. I think Arteta fully backs that he will create a system for his group of players that will beat anyone on their day. And so actually, if he gets an injury in a position, he doesn't want to have to bring in a different profile because they're the second choice. He wants to bring in V2 of the first person that got injured. And I like that. How do you think we'll do in the UCL next season? So we are not technically qualified for the Champions League yet, although we are going to be in the Champions League. I think we can do well. I think actually Arteta's style, the way that we played this season, I think it's suited to beating European teams. I think a lot of them, I know that sounds stupid after we didn't beat Sporting, but that was a different type of game where we weren't playing our proper team and we couldn't implement our system properly, especially after Saliba went off in the second leg. But I do think that generally speaking, it is the sort of system that will perform really well in Europe, dominating the play. And so I think we should at least be looking at getting out of the group. I think we should also... I think quarterfinals should be the minimum. We're 8 points clear at the top of the Premier League, a league that is, the strongest league in the world. You look at the fact that Man United comfortably beat Barcelona, who are top of La Liga. Chelsea comfortably beat Borussia Dortmund, who are second or maybe even top of the Bundesliga now. Time to let players like Reece Nelson and Maitland-Niles go. I do think Maitland-Niles will go. Reece Nelson, I don't know if he'll go. I think he might end up just being outright second choice to Saka next season, which I wouldn't mind too much. Is Big Gabby criminally underrated? Gabriel Magalhaes is criminally underrated, yes. Absolutely criminally underrated. Oh, God. I saw a thing. I was just reading a thing from 442 of the 10 best centre-backs in the world. Christian Romero is on the list and Gabby isn't. Like, who is making that list? That's outrageous. Christian Romero. He's shocking. It infuriates me. He's reckless. He's got no composure whatsoever. He's an absolute liability to his team. How? That's just come back to me that I read that earlier, and that's really wound me up. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely the disrespect that Gabriel Magalhaes gets is disgraceful. I genuinely think overall he's had a better season than William Saliba, and I think William Saliba's had a phenomenal season. And I just don't understand why. I don't understand why. I don't who looks at Christian Romero at any point in any game and goes, yeah, that's great. Look at him. Look at the way he's just flown in from 40 yards away from a player up on the halfway line, got himself sent off. It's ridiculous. And that's on 442. So, and I don't know how they've made that list. But the rest of the list, fine. But putting Christian Romero on the list, That was too much. That was too much for me. It really wound me up. It could be a deluded Spurs fan writing it, yeah. Best penalty taker in the Emirates era. Well, I'll tell you what. I think Bukayo Saka's the only one with a 100% rate. I think Bukayo Saka's the only one with a 100% penalty rate in the Emirates era. I'm not saying he is the best penalty taker we've had, but I'm trying to think who used to. Santi Cazorla was very good. Santi Cazorla was an excellent penalty taker. God, I miss Santi Cazorla. I was thinking about that. I'm going to make a video. Actually, in the chat, right? So I'm going to make a video of my 10 favourite Arsenal players in the Banter era. Now, it's not the whole era wasn't a Banter era, but I'm defining the Banter era as from the basically anyone that played between the Invincibles and Arteta. So they can't have been an Invincible and they can't have played under Arteta, but anyone that played in that gap. Your 10 favourite people that fit that criteria. I'm going to make a full video on it, but I'd be interested to see what you lot say. So Cazorla reminded me of that because Cazorla would be right up there. Sanchez would be up there. But the thing is, right, so this isn't just best players. This is my favourite players. And so players like Sanchez, because of the way he left, gets demoted a bit down the rankings. Ramsey the same, despite the fact that I think Ramsey probably had earned a pay rise, and maybe the way that was. I think the club portrayed the way that Ramsey left slightly differently to how it should have been. No, so Aidan, Katie, Tierney can't be on it because Tierney plays under Arteta. It has to be someone that finished playing at Arsenal before Arteta. Podolski, Podolski's one of those ones where ability-wise, would he make it? No, but he's always just been like 100% a gunner. Again, Smith Rowe can't because Smith Rowe plays under Arteta. It has to be someone that finished playing before Arteta. Because if they play in the current squad, there's I'm massively biased towards them because of recency bias and how well we're doing. Yeah, no, Mustafi's getting nowhere. Here we go. So Cazorla, Ramsey, Sanchez, Ozil, Monreal, Arshavin, Mertesacker, Arteta, Podolski, Szczesny. So Arteta probably wouldn't make it because, I mean, yes, as a player, but no, because I've got bias because he's the current manager. Interesting, Monreal was not on my radar whatsoever. Not on my radar whatsoever, Monreal. But, I mean, I did love him, and he did put a shift in. Abu Diaby, Abu Diaby would. It's difficult. That's the thing. If you go back quite a long way, there is the era just after the Invincibles. That sort of, obviously the 06 Champions League final, even into 07, 08, 09. There's quite a lot of players there that I did love. It's tricky. It's tricky. That's why I'm going to make a video. Giroud would be probably on there. I think Giroud would be on there. It's so basically, we're talking about, and I'm going to make a full video on it. The best, my top 10 favorite, so not necessarily best players, but my top 10 favorite players that played between the Invincibles and Arteta. So they can't have been an Invincible, and they can't have played under Arteta. But if they played in that gap, we're going for those. Oxlade-Chamberlain wouldn't be on there. I think the way he left. He could have gone on to have an amazing Arsenal career. He'll go down for me in the same book as Maitland-Niles. Bellerin, yeah, but because Bellerin after injury was quite bad, and for a long period Bellerin just annoyed me at right back because he'd lost his pace. Rosicky would definitely be on there. Wilshere would definitely be on there. Again, it's favourites rather than necessary. I mean, prime Wilshere when he wasn't injured would comfortably be in the best 11 as well. Bellerin did play under Arteta as well. Yeah, same with Lacazette. See, Theo Walcott's an interesting one because I feel like on paper Theo Walcott should be. In there, but I don't know if he is. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because he's gone on to have a really mediocre Premier League career since. No, Koscielny snaked this. He's not getting on there. Abue, I did love Abue. I did love Emmanuel. That's what I'm thinking. Like going back to Alex Song, players like that. Sanya, Bakary Sanya. There's so many. It's such a you forget how many players there were. Good luck in your Sunderland trials. Someone on TikTok's got Sunderland trials. How about that? Lord Bentner for the memes. I mean, there's some of these shouts coming out now. See, Samir Nasri as an outright player to watch play. Samir Nasri was unbelievable. But again, he moved to City as soon as the money came, so it's difficult. Same with like Gael Clichy. Gael Clichy is still the best left back that we've had. Well, not until Zinchenko, but Vermaelen again. But Vermaelen, I loved Vermaelen when he was at the club, but he frustrated the life out of me by going to Barcelona, never playing. Yeah, he won loads of stuff, but it's like I don't know. That's such a wasted football career for me to just sit on the bench for years. Hleb, Alexander Hleb, definitely. No. Someone in the TikTok got mistaken. This is players post Invincibles. Obviously, Ashley Cole was better than Gael Clichy. Ashley Cole's the best left back the Premier League's ever seen. If you're making a Premier League combined 11 all time, Ashley Cole's your left back. Yeah, that period of players going to Barca, period of players going to City, Barca, United. I mean, God, we used to just ship off our best players to rival clubs. It was outrageous. Like when you actually think back to the amount of players that either went to Barca, United, it was grim. It was grim. Petr Cech, absolutely not. Gervinho. I mean, Gervinho's, yeah. I never particularly liked him, I'll be honest. It was worrying. It was. Every summer you'd be like, all right, which best player are we going to lose this summer? And I think that's one of the great things that we've got now, is that I never, ever, ever even questioned that Martinelli and Saka would sign new contracts. Saliba, I was slightly worried, but I'm not anymore. And the only reason I was slightly worried was just because of the rocky start he had at Arsenal. But you just don't worry about it anymore. You don't worry about it anymore. Socrates. Yeah, players like Socrates and Kolasinac go in that sort of. I mean, they're nowhere near the top 10, but I did just like them. Who's Vitor Roque? Vitor Roque is an 18-year-old Brazilian centre forward. Can play off the right, but predominantly centre forward. He got called up to the Brazilian national team for the first time ever this international break, and Arsenal are potentially interested in him. He plays for Atletico Paranaense. This is good though. I'm liking. There's so many names. Carlos Vela. Again, I do think I struggle with players that have gone on to have a mid-career, like an average career after leaving. So Vela going out and doing all right in the MLS, for example, it's like, do I care? Gnabry, again, I don't think he wasn't really at Arsenal for long enough. He didn't. If he'd done what he's done at Bayern at Arsenal, I'd agree. But there we go. Anyway, we went off on a massive tangent. Then I will make that video though at some point, and I'll probably go back through the live chat on YouTube to try and see who the best 10 were. It's tricky though, isn't it? It is tricky. It's going to be a good video. Got a feeling Gabriel Magalhaes would go first. No, I think he loves it at Arsenal. I think Gabriel absolutely loves it at Arsenal. Again, if you're in the TikTok chat, I appreciate it. I know I don't respond to you enough when I'm on YouTube, but if you want to join the YouTube chat, the link is in my bio. Please drop a subscription. That is going to be the end of the stream. We have covered everything. We've got into the realms of some of the lates and greats of Arsenal. And we'll be back tomorrow. We will be back tomorrow. And tomorrow's video will basically be a preview of the Leeds game. Predictions, predicted lineups, and all the rest of it. And it'll be interesting because we'll have updates, hopefully, on Nketiah and Saliba, who are being assessed tomorrow. But anyway, thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining on YouTube and on TikTok. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel. You're all amazing for being here in the first place, and I massively appreciate everyone in the chat. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great evening. I think that's gone. There we